Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller, or for those that are just starting out and have no idea where to start. I am Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, blogger, reader, hopefully reviewer, and I will talk more later, hopefully reviewer in the next couple of weeks, and your co-host for today, coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
Thank you, Laurie. And I am Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, science fiction, memoir, fantasy, picture book writer, and your co-host today, coming to you from the fabulous Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country as well, which is so diverse and that we live quite a little while away, but here we are on the same country.
We're a good, what, hour and a half away, I would say?
Easy.
Yeah, and we're
Easy.
still same country, which says a
which
lot,
is beautiful.
but very diverse because you're more bush.
Yes,
I am
in the
more
mountains.
suburbs.
Yep, we're in
Inner
the
city.
mountains.
Yeah, so
and facing our first bushfires this year, so it's all been a little bit scary, but
which I
we've got
never
the big
saw you.
emergency app up, as
Good,
everybody should have
good.
the emergency app, have your fire plan ready all around Australia, know all of those things,
Yeah.
because we're coming into
And be
very big
packed
bushfires.
with all your important stuff. Make
Yes,
sure
know
you've got
where
your
the
important stuff.
cat things are. The
Good.
cats were not excited to get into the
No.
basket
Dear,
together
dear.
because I had a few extra chooks that I had to put into the basket. So thought, well, it's either with your sister cat or you're in with the rooster, and I don't know that you want to get in with a rooster. So
Probably not. No.
No, they were not impressed. But anyway, there you go. But we are all safe, and thanks to the fabulous CFA for the great work that they do. But
amazing work, yeah.
we are here in episode 130.
130. Yes, I forgot to mention that. Sorry, good pickup. Yes, 130. I've been around for a good 20 or so episodes this year. This has been very exciting.
Yeah, and feels like you've been here for a long time, which is great.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as the compliment.
Take that. Yes, definitely take that. And what an exciting interview you've got for us this episode.
Yes, I got to speak to the wonderful Dirk Strasser, so author of Conquist and quite a few other books that he'll talk about. But it was an absolutely fabulous interview. I managed to squeeze it in towards the end of this year with all the mad rush to get everything else done. So I'm looking forward to being able to share that one to everyone today.
To be really good. We won't get this out till 2025, but because we do have to have some festive celebrations ourselves, but it is
indeed
really good to get this happening. Go.
We should say Happy New Year to everyone listening.
Yes,
because
we should.
We'll be coming to you in 2025.
It will. This will be our first episode for 2025. So stay tuned for some new things, not this episode, but when we get organised for the 131, which will be really good. And we've got the usual news, reviews, book spotlights. I've put 5 book spotlights in because I feel like we just need to do a whole episode of all the spotlights, because we had we're about 25 behind.
But we easily could.
We could do that. Maybe we do that. That could be our first recorded in the new year. We just do all the book spotlights. And what have you been reading over summer?
Yes, because I plan to read. I plan to read.
Indeed.
I promise.
I've seeded ideas with my children and relatives to what do you want for Christmas? A book. A book. Here's my list. A book. Oh yes, also like that, a book. So Any of the above. And in some cases, I've in fact bought the books and said, here, just give me that.
I've always thought that's a really smart way to go with books because, you know, you know what you like
You do know what
and
you like. And
it
I
can
don't
be
mind
tricky
surprises,
to
but
know. Yep.
mm,
It is good to
sometimes,
have some that are on your to read
yes.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is a very long list. But I
Yeah.
also have to apologize to our newsletter subscribers. I was hoping to get one more newsletter out before the end of the year, but it's going to be the beginning of next year. And I think I've got about 6 books to give away. And
Oh,
I'm looking at the fabulous Catherine Jinks,
wow.
her latest book, Panic, which is just great.
Awesome.
So I haven't read it, but I'm itching, but I won't. I'll hold back and give it away to one
Well,
of our newsletter subscribers, which is good.
well, who knows? You might get it for Christmas.
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
Indeed,
Santa's pretty
indeed.
good.
Santa is pretty good. Santa should listen to the podcast and go,
Mm,
yes. Or, in fact, buy me some more merchandise because,
yes.
I've got Read More Aussie Books on
Love
here. And I saw
it.
you taking a sip out of one of your
Oh, I did.
fabulous
I love these mugs.
cups.
Can I just do a
Yes.
massive shout out to our mugs because they are, I always have an issue with not finding the right size for
It's
handle, and
important.
these are
Yeah.
great handles. So I really love these cups.
Good. And
Yeah.
I like these ones for tea because they're a bit finer and I like the
Nice.
shape. Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's
Shape, yeah.
fabo.
And again, good. You can get a few fingers in the handle. So there you
Mm.
go.
And we've got them for readers and for
Mhm,
writers.
mhm.
So you can pretty much cover
Everything that
every
you want.
genre, every
Yeah.
area.
Yes.
And
All of those things.
they're great little gifts as well. So and I do love, I don't have it in this room, but I do have the tote bag as well. It
Ah,
is so good. It's the perfect
it's great.
size. It's a
Yep.
great size.
I take mine to work so that there's, people go, oh, what's ABL? Let me
I
just
have
tell
it
you
on
a
the
little
train
bit.
and when I'm shopping.
This is good. This is
It is.
good. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So, and you can find all of
Yes.
those things on the Australian Book Lovers website, of course, and that we partner with Redbubble and all of the
And all the images are
genres and
done
images.
by your
Yes.
incredible, incredible daughter. So get onto
Yes.
it. They're great
Get on
images.
there.
They're fun. They're
Yeah.
fun.
And Redbubble is good because it supports independent artists, as we love to do also on Australian Book
Yes,
Lovers.
that's right.
Now,
Exactly.
we've got some news to share, and I think you've got a very big piece of news. So let's go
I do.
bring on the news.
All right. Well, usually I would have lots more news to share that we've been getting all the bits and pieces. And of course we've had the very sad news this week of John Marsden passing away, which was
Yes.
very sad. And I think that it was funny. Suddenly there were authors all over the news that were being, it was a good time for authors, but not good time for writers and for readers.
No.
And so that was very, very sad news. But I have managed in the final couple of weeks of this year to finish my book 5 of my Stones of Power YA fantasy series, and
Woo!
I sent it off to the publisher. So it's gone. It's out of my hands now.
This is
It's gone
great.
out into yes, well, it's one of those things where you hit send on the email and
Yep.
you think, "Oh my gosh, thank God, that's gone. It's done. Yay, I can think for myself again." And then your brain just shuts down. Your brain just shuts down. I've been editing that one
Ah,
for a good eight months, I
wow.
think, with that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So I was very glad to send it off because it's actually also the finale. It's the
Mm.
final book. Not only is it book
Yeah.
5, but it's the final book of that series.
Wow.
So there was a lot of wrapping up that I had
It's
to
a huge
do.
part of your life.
It really is. Yeah. I've been working on that. I think I started writing The Butterfly Stone when in 2014,
Yep.
and it is now 2024. So it's been a work in progress. It was all through COVID. I was
Yes.
writing them.
Yes.
So yes, it's been a process.
Yeah.
And
But
yeah,
what a
so
fantastic achievement to actually wrap
thank
up
you.
the
Yes.
series
Yes.
and a
And
5 book series. That's
I had no idea the amount of work that would go into not only a finale, but yeah, a 5-book series finale. So it taught me a lot of new things and a lot
Mm.
of things to be prepared for because I'm a pantser. So I knew generally where I was going. I knew the start, I knew how it was going to end, but everything in between, yeah. So it was a lot of wrapping up, a lot of reviewing of the previous books, a lot of reading of book 1, book 2, book 3, taking a lot of notes. So
Hmm.
so my pantser personality bit me in the bottom with that one, I think.
Yes, yes.
But
But
I'm really
think
happy.
that's
Really
good.
happy.
And thinking about the last episode that we had with Dan Kaufman and Lisa Kenway,
Yeah.
retrofitting,
Yeah. Yes, retrofitting.
retrofitting.
Absolutely. And I tell you what I love is when you get to a certain point and you think, oh, yeah, I'm good.
Ah,
I don't know how I did that,
that was good.
but that's good. Wow. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I'll take it. I'll take
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yes, I
yeah.
actually had a few of those, which I was really happy about. I thought, wow, this makes me seem a lot more of a plotter than, than I truly am.
So
I'll
perhaps your
admit it.
characters knew where to go, or they, your muse had it sorted out
Well, I
in
think,
the
and a bit
ether.
like, well, it's funny. It's the way while I was talking with Dirk Strasser in our little chat that we have a bit later today, yeah, very similar where just letting your characters take you, they
Mm,
know. They
mm,
know where they're
mm,
going, and somehow they know to reference things that happened in previous books that
mm.
maybe I'm not thinking that hard about. But when I
Yeah.
get to it in the edit, and I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm clever. Yeah.
Now that is fantastic news. It's very
Yes,
good.
so very excited. I have no idea about dates or anything like that, so I'd love to tell my readers, but it is with the publisher now.
This is
So
good.
fingers crossed that I'll be getting some details about perhaps book 4, which hopefully will be out sometime when this comes
Coming
out,
year? Yes,
2025, so
2025.
sometime this
Yeah.
year.
Yep.
But we'll see how it
Yep.
goes.
Yeah.
And
Very good.
yeah, it's done.
It's
It's done.
done.
Which
You can
actually
have a really good
means
Christmas then.
yes, because I've put everything aside, even though I do have book 2 of my Whitefire series just sitting there. It's ready to edit, it's ready to dive in. It's fully written. I just have to actually fix it. So it is sort of sitting there, bubbling away in the background, but I've put everything aside for the next 10 days and I'm having a break and I'm going to read lots of books and hopefully
Yes.
the other part of my news, hopefully I'll be dropping a few reviews
Mm,
in the next few days.
mm.
So hopefully by the time this comes out, they'll be out. And if
Yes.
not, this will be my kick in the pants to actually get them done.
Get going. All right.
Because I've got
Very
a
nice.
huge list of books that I've read this year and
Mm, mm.
I need to get my reviews up. I
Yes.
need to get them up. So
Yes.
that's kind of my plan over the next 10 days is to get those up and going because what's better than having a Christmas present for the authors in my life
Indeed.
and the
Indeed it is.
writers?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that'll
Yeah,
be my little Christmas present to them.
that's good.
Yeah.
I particularly try and leave reviews. I mean, I usually leave stars for everybody,
Yep.
but I particularly try and let, because I read a lot. I usually read about
Mm.
120 books a year.
I don't know how
So
you do that.
it's I'm always reading. So if I'm out in the garden, if I'm driving, I'm listening to audiobooks.
Brilliant.
I've got one on electronic. I'll have one happening in paperback, and then if I
Really good.
run out of that one, I'll start another one.
Mhm.
So I've usually got 4 or 5 in the go. Anyway, always try and leave stars if I can.
Yeah.
Australian authors particularly try and leave some words, and new
Yeah.
authors I try really hard to make sure I've got some. I
Yeah.
can't always get to them. Sometimes I go back like you and go, you know
Mm.
what? All right, I've got half a day. I'm going to try and put some
Yep.
words
Put
together
these
because it's so
together.
important to have those
Oh, it
reviews,
really
authors,
is.
because
Yeah.
people do, as you know, you listen
Mhm.
to all of our fabulous authors on the podcast. They work
Mhm.
hard to give you a story, and
Yeah.
a little review, even if it's just stars, is great. Or tell 2 friends is the other thing we say. Tell two
Yes.
friends what you
Yeah.
thought of the book and encourage them to read it or borrow it from the library.
And like I'll say to people, because I don't do it myself, but I will say to people, all you need is one line. You can just
Mm,
say that you had thought the book
mm,
was great
mm,
and pop a couple of stars up. So
mm.
for everyone, it doesn't take a lot. I like
No.
to put a bit more in, because I see a bit more, I think, being a writer myself. So you pick up on the world building, and you pick up
Yes.
on the characterization, or the dialogue, or just how things go together, or the way they've structured something that I like to pop in a few more. But then again, I'll say I like to pop in a few more words, and half the review is just, I love this book, it's really great, you totally need to read it. So
Yeah. This is good. This
Yeah.
is good. Yeah. Definitely. All right.
So
I'll tell you someone else who does really good reviews is Claire Roden. So Claire's one of our authors. She's got her books up on the website, her YA series, as well as the Stars at Night, and she's got a couple of others as well. And I really love reading hers because she's got that kind of technical as well. She can talk about how the story was structured, and she's done the uni course and that. And I think, oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that. But yeah, just tell people how you feel about it. It's good.
Exactly.
All right.
I fangirl, massive fangirl. I'm
Fangirl,
like,
yes.
it's brilliant. You have to read it. Just read
Yeah.
it. I don't
Yeah.
care. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be embarrassing. Yeah. We can be embarrassing for each other. All right.
Yes.
I've got some news. Let me
Oh, tell
share
me.
a couple of news little items with you. And I wanted to share some happy items. So Anne James is the winner of the 2024 ASA medal. And I love that she was, in fact, introduced by Dub Leffler, who, of course, is one of the fabulous authors he was half of the writing and illustrating of Black Cockatoo and Durham, which were in the Carrigear Awards. And he talks about Anne being the very first illustrator in history to receive the ASA medal.
Wow.
And he tells this little story. So this is on the ASA author's website, and you can look it under news. But he says, about 25 years ago, I saw an ad in the paper. It was from Books Illustrated, and they were looking for Indigenous illustrators. So I applied. Shortly thereafter, I received a lovely handwritten letter written on yellow paper, and it began, written on the last day of summer. It was from Anne. She wrote that she liked my portraits and that I should try illustrating my own version of an existing book title's cover. Now, that letter was my very first connection with the publishing industry. Thank you, Anne, for making it a pleasant one. Oh, how beautiful is that?
That's fantastic.
That is just so fantastic.
And illustrators are so important
Yes.
to picture books and just in general covers. Illustrators are magnificent, and it's about time they get a little bit of a
recognition.
recognition. Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely.
So you need to have a look and read that beautiful the rest of the article. And they've got Dub's introduction, they've got Anne's response, and all of the things that she's done. She's done an absolutely fantastic job at really supporting and fostering Australian illustrators, which is great. All right. One more from the ASA, the 2024 Blake Beckett Trust Scholarship winner.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, so that's come out. So the winner and runner-up. So the applicants were assessed by Amal Awad and Kate Ryan. The 5 shortlisted were Meg Caddy, Delia Falconer, Muriel Duchau, Ronnie Scott, and Gretchen Sherm. And the winners were Muriel Duchau and Gretchen Sherm.
Yep.
There you go.
Fantastic. Congratulations to you both.
And lovely information from the assessors, an fiction or detective story from Muriel and Gretchen Sherm's, and we've got The Crying Room on our website, Gretchen's book as well. So the scholarship is offered annually to an Australian author to provide them with valuable time to work on a current manuscript, and the winner gets $35,000 and the runner-up $15,000. So this is something for authors to certainly have a look at, this kind of award. And yes, you might have a manuscript that really needs help, but you really want the time. You've just spent 8 months working a full-time job and
editing a book that took me a good 8 months probably to write, and then another 8 months. Who has any time? It's terrible. I'd love to buy some time to just sit and work on stuff full-time
and do that. So somebody has to win these. So get out there and apply.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. The last last one that I wanted is from the ABC News, and it was the top reads for 2024 for the young readers in your life,
Oh.
from babies to teenagers. And again, there's a good sprinkle of I'll say our authors, because all Australian authors, we go, yay.
Yep.
But I love it when I see some people who've listed their books with us. So we've got Toddler Picture Books, Party Rhyme by Antonia Presenti. We've got The Cheeky Toddler Alphabet by Davina Bell and Jennifer Faulkner. You've got Tractor by Sally Hutton and Brian Lovelock. And now, so many kids. Who doesn't love a tractor?
Oh, right.
My daughter and I were heading down the street to buy the veggies for Christmas. We had to wait till the one pedestrian traffic light in our town went to green, and the grandma with the little one stopped and turned, and they watched the trucks with a couple of big trucks going by, and you could see the eyes light up. I thought,
yep.
You just can't resist those big machines.
Nope.
They're good.
They're cool.
All right, and other notables are In the Rock Pool by Andrea Rowe and Hannah Summers. So Errol by Zanny Louise and Philip Bunting. And Zanny Louise is fabulous. She does one of the Writers Australia. Writers Australia? What's the one with oh, can you hear my cat meowing out the back?
No.
That's good, because she's not impressed that I haven't fed her, but that's okay. But she does one of the writing workshops, and I'm sorry, but I've done it with, but she was very helpful with another little book that I was writing, which was Auntie Mary's Got No Hair, which was about my sister and having her chemo and the little kids and working out that, so one day I might.
Oh, you have to put that together.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah,
I've
what a
done the
fabulous
words
book.
and just thinking about the illustrations. Cassie's deciding whether or not she wants to do that. But anyway, Big Big Love by Lisa Fuller and Samantha Campbell, and All the World Says Goodnight by Jess Racklift. Racklift, a comforting soft rhymes to finish off story time before the transition to bed. And those stories are just so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We've got
speaking of good books.
Yes. What have you got?
Well, we've got so many spotlights today.
So many spotlights. So let's go. You please have a look on the ABC News 2024. It was on the 8th of December, the best books for young readers. They've got school age and picture books. They've got early readers. They've got Detective, Beans, and The Case of the Missing Hat, young adults as well. And another one, I'm Not Really Here by Gary Lonesborough, who again is one of our fabulous Australian authors. And he was our
very first podcaster.
Many episodes ago. Yes. So congratulations, Gary, on another one. And really, as it says here, he's absolutely carved out a space writing queer Aboriginal stories. He captures young men in a way nobody else does, managing to explore both their strength and vulnerability. This is his third books, and he keeps getting better. Absolutely. And Liar's Test by Amber and Quay Mulliner. And I think, damn it, why didn't I see these before? I already bought some of my kids.
or put your wish list together for for Santa.
So yeah, there are hundreds of books and there's so many beautiful authors. So please buy an Australian book. That's enough news, because we better get on with book spotlights. The Necromancer by Adam Coleman is a fantasy. Alex Hicks is a police detective and closeted magic user, enjoying a lavish Melbourne lifestyle with his hot, rich, adoring boyfriend. But when he is forced to reveal himself as a magician to his colleagues, he is drawn into a horrific magic case involving the faculty of Melbourne Magic School and a summoned abomination called a revenant. The cast of suspects have motives aplenty and no decent alibis between them, while Alex encounters a series of sorcerous attacks of ever-escalating menace. This just sounds fabulous.
Yes, doesn't it?
Yeah, worse, he has to work the case with his magic school ex, Robbie, whom he definitely does not still have any feelings for. Whether in the present or the past, Alex and Robbie will come to discover that even if you can use magic, life is never easy. The Necromancer offers a unique combination of compelling crime mystery and dazzling fantasy spectacle. It juxtaposes the mundane aspects of modern existence with the mystical and murderous. It includes a diverse cast of LGBTQ characters whose actions are not defined by their sexuality or trauma. Characters are forced to confront their romantic past in a complicated and dangerous present. The novel acts as a reminder to readers of the strength of love in any existence, ordinary or magical. Finally, The Necromancer serves as a celebration of vibrant contemporary Melbourne while combining magic, a baffling mystery, sorcerer's action, humour, sex, horror, and even undead friends.
Fiends, I think.
Oh, fiends, yes, and even undead fiends. Oh, good pickup. Sorry about that.
Because I was looking like this is what I love about our spotlights. Can I just say,
Yeah,
our spotlights are amazing because if I haven't read over our spotlight list before we start, I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. It's fun.
yeah,
It's going on the list.
it's going on the list. Indeed,
That
indeed.
one definitely is. Yeah.
It's got lots of things that I would love. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm like another Melbourne fantasy. This is what I love about
Hmm.
when they're
Hmm.
set in Melbourne. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
bring on the demons in Melbourne. Yeah.
Ah.
Alrighty, so Adam Coleman is a first-time writer and long-time reader. His particular loves are classic mystery novels and speculative fiction, which he has sought to combine in his debut novel. Adam holds a Bachelor of Commerce and a Masters of Business Administration from the University of Melbourne and accepts that these are unusual qualifications for a fiction writer. Born and raised a Melburnian, his writing serves as a love letter to Australia's coolest capital.
Well, we already love him and
Look,
we love his book. So really, you're on a winner,
when
Adam.
are we getting Adam on? This is an interview I'm going to fight you for.
Perhaps I won't even tell you.
Oh, actually, do you know, it's funny because Bachelor of Commerce and a Master's of Business Administration, that's not that unusual for writers, I
No,
think.
no.
We
Well,
tend
just
to go into boring work jobs, although I apologize to all commerce people out there and business admin. I'm business admin, so I get it.
you're allowed to say that.
I can say it. But yes, it's you get more I was going to say fluid, but you get more creativity, I think, when
Mm,
your day to day is not as creative, I wonder.
yeah, perhaps there is.
Yeah,
You need
maybe
that release.
you need to
Like,
get it out.
yeah, like Lisa Kenway was saying, when she got to a certain stage of her life, her job was
Yeah,
going well, her family was going well, but it was something missing, some
yeah,
creative thread, and she
yeah,
found that writing fiction was the way to go. Yeah.
exactly. So I
Mm.
wonder. Although then again, I want to hear from the lawyers who have written a creative book. Tell me about it. Sounds fascinating. I'm in.
Let me tell you very tragically, and
Mm.
apologies to all lawyers. There's been a study that I
No.
was talking to a friend about, and
Mm.
the it was on a podcast called Wild, which
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I forgot the host's name. She does some fabulous work. And the person that she was interviewing was one of the researchers, and 75,000 people that they survey every year and have done this. So this is a longitudinal study about happiness.
Mhm.
And they'd
Oh no.
talked about women's happiness, even though they do women's and men's. But the most unhappy woman in the world was a 42-year-old lawyer, according to the survey. So
According to the survey. Oh, get out there and get some creative writing.
that's right. But these people work hard. It was interesting because he was talking about why is that? Why is it as women have got more options, more choices, that many of them have become less happy?
Mm.
And he was talking about how young adolescent and early adult
Mhm. Mhm.
women don't get necessarily. There's not as many role models out there. They don't get the
Yep.
advice. There hasn't been the history of what they can do.
Mhm.
They're still trying that kind of thing, and there's still the pressure to have it all and all of
Yep.
those kind of things. So
Yep.
it's actually, a real tug for lots of
Yeah.
people finding that balance of identity. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was what okay. Uh, We are coming back to spotlights, I
Yeah,
promise.
we are.
I
Yeah.
was watching Matlock this week,
Ah, yes.
and which I'm loving. And of course, the main character is an older woman, and she is a lawyer, and she is trying to, investigate. But what I love about, and that she actually, they mention in this particular episode about the fact that older women become invisible
Oh, yeah.
and how that,
Oh,
that,
sorry.
no, you sneeze again. No,
No,
oh,
phone number.
oh,
Oh, oh, no. Sorry, try that one again.
no. Yeah, so watching Matlock this week. So, of course, an older female character who is a lawyer who is investigating murder. She's investigating a case, but it's fascinating to me that they went into that whole older women feel invisible. They feel that they there was they had a great term, and I cannot for the life of me remember it now, but that feeling the trajectory slipping. Whereas with the blokes, it's more, as they get older, of course, they're hitting their peak. And apparently, no, and so it was fascinating. It was a fascinating episode that I was watching, and then watching a movie with my niece, which was Legally Blonde. So it was one of those mornings where some really interesting female
Yes.
characterization and being put into boxes, I think was just fascinating. We were having that chat between me and her, and she's
Yeah,
nearly
good.
16. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get it.
That's interesting. Yes.
Mm,
So definitely a podcast worth
mm,
listening to. So it's
mm.
Wild with Sarah Wilson, and she chats to
Interesting.
lots of different people. And she is a New York Times best-selling author, former news journalist, and she talks to lots of people about lots of really different things. So this was the one about
Interesting.
why women getting it all and feeling even more unhappy. But anyway, we must be
Okay.
warming up because
Yes.
I'm just about to take off my cardigan. Woo!
Yes,
Getting
yes.
there.
Summer in Melbourne.
We're in
Where's the
Melbourne.
coat?
I know. Okay. Let's go back to our book spotlights because we have got number 2 is The Rainbow Coloured Black Sheep by Drew Mortimer. And this is an autobiography. Embark on a transformative journey with Drew Mortimer as he navigates the complexities of identity, faith, and managing a bipolar affective disorder diagnosis in his gripping autobiography. From a childhood when he experienced the trauma of molestation to the tumultuous intersection of his Christian upbringing and burgeoning attraction to men, Mortimer's story is a poignant exploration of resilience. Pledging himself to his faith at a tender age, Mortimer's world was turned upside down when a camping trip was more revelatory than he could have imagined. Tormented by conflicting desires and the weight of societal expectations, he felt alien to the world around him and grappled with his sexual orientation while attempting to reconcile it with his Christian beliefs. As well as sexual experiences with women, and driven by the conflict of his sexual identity and religious beliefs, Mortimer embarked on a journey through the corridors of conversion therapy, only to emerge unchanged. Now, at 61, he has found peace in embracing his authentic self, transcending the conflicts of his youth and struggles of adulthood. Join Mortimer as he navigates his sexual identity, complexities of faith, bipolar affective disorder, and the resilience of the human spirit in an enlightening, empowering story.
Wow, fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think that basically being an autobiography tells you his bio, but I can also add to that he is a retired, single, gay, queer male, 60 plus, first time author. And he has written his autobiography. He lives a very settled and quiet life, reading, exercising, and enjoying time spent with extended family, watching the little ones grow. So that sounds lovely. It's amazing. It's amazing what we go through in life, and
Yeah. And what a journey.
autobiographies are
Yeah.
incredible for bringing that all together.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and
what a
courageous for
journey.
sharing all of that
Mm,
with the world, which is fantastic.
absolutely.
We are pivoting to number 3,
Oh,
which is Shattered by Pauline Yates, science fiction thriller. And we talked to Pauline just a couple of episodes ago.
and this is
And
actually on my Kindle, and I need to read it. It's one of the ones I'm reviewing. Anyway, sorry.
it's good.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, you're allowed to fangirl. So M, in the vast, unforgiving expanse of, why have I got M? I think M is not in it. So let me just start that one again, people.
Okay.
In the vast, unforgiving expanse of space, Kate, now living under the alias Grace, is on a desperate mission. Disguised as a Space Corp employee, she's determined to uncover the truth behind her brother's mysterious disappearance. On a routine debris collection mission, her world is shattered when she discovers a clue that could expose Space Corp's darkest secrets. Thrust into a dangerous game of cat and mouse, Grace must navigate the treacherous void, facing not only the perils of space, but also the haunting memories of her past captivity. With her crewmates' lives hanging in the balance, she must decide who she can trust as she races against time to unravel a conspiracy threatening to consume her. a pulse-pounding sci-fi thriller that delves deep into the human spirit, exploring themes of identity, betrayal, and resilience. The intricate plot and breathtaking depiction of space will captivate you from the first page to the last. Perfect for fans of intense, character-driven narratives and gripping science fiction, promising a journey that is as emotionally compelling as it is thrilling.
Ah, Pauline, I can't wait for this one. So,
It's on the list.
It's actually the top of my list. I just started it when I had to get the final of my edits done. But anyway,
Ah,
sorry, I'm getting there. Pauline Yates writes horror and science fiction and is a 3 times Bookfest award winner for her sci-fi novel Memories Don't Lie. She's an Aurealis Awards finalist. That might come back a little bit later in conversation.
indeed.
Twice nominated for the Australasian Shadow Awards and has short fiction translated in Italy. Her fiction and poetry appear in numerous publications and podcasts, and she darkens the pages of many anthologies with her vast collection of microfiction. Read more at paulineyates.com.
Very good.
Yes.
Number 4 is the case. Oh, the case that there's my eyes anticipating the words. Number 4 is The Case of the Beth-El Stone by David Cairns, and this is historical fiction. From the bustling gold rush and the streets of Melbourne in 1864 to the ancient city of Edinburgh in Scotland, Major Findo Gask, his Sherlockian friend Errol Raitt, and their companion Mary Mitchell flee from a secret society out for revenge. While in hiding, Gask visits a second-hand bookshop, which launches. Oh, my lordy wordy, my words are tumbling there. While in hiding, Gask visits a second-hand bookshop, which launches. I just can't say it.
Launches. So it's too
Launches,
late at night.
launches,
Sorry,
launches.
I've
Yeah,
kept you
no,
up all
no, no,
day.
it's all good. While in hiding, one more. Why? Come on, Veronica, you can do this. Concentrate. While in hiding, Gask visits a second-hand bookshop, which launches him on a puzzling trail with deadly consequences. Our heroes find themselves pitted against the full might of the British Empire's secret services and a centuries-old Knights Templar Lodge of the Freemasons, with a secret to guard and an explosive plan to replace Queen Victoria on the throne with the true king. Murder, kidnap, torture, and death stalk in their trail. Gask and Raitt alone have the key to avert a constitutional crisis and the violent conflict that would follow. But can they survive to unlock the puzzle?
Ooh, that is awesome. So, David Cairns, the Baron of Finnevin, an ancient Scottish title. I don't have quite the Scottish brogue that you do, my
Ah,
dear, that
a bit
slipped
more
in there.
practice with the Scottish father-in-law.
Resides on the Gold Coast and has always been a student of history with the ability to create an atmosphere and three-dimensional experiences with his writing style. Until recently, he was a technology entrepreneur. There we go again. And he's the author of the Heelitz Tale series, Downfall and Redemption, The Case of the Immigrant Niece, and The Case of the Wandering Corpse. How cool. These
Indeed.
titles are awesome.
Yeah,
And you can find him on www.cairnsoffinnevin.com.
indeed. And those books are on the website. So have a look and you can find those there. Let's go. The
And
last one
five.
is Never Not Ever by Jodie Benveniste. Benveniste, yes. Never Not Ever by Jodie Benveniste, which is a YA romance. So we've got a little bit of something for everyone here.
Yeah.
Every year, Tilly dreams of the dad she's never known showing up for her birthday, but he never does. When she wakes up on the morning of her 16th birthday, dadless yet again, she knows it'll never happen. In fact, it's her worst birthday ever because her grandmother died a few months ago. Her mum is working again, and the boy she's in love with, the ridiculously gorgeous Josh, refuses to break up with his drama queen girlfriend and notice her instead. Then Tilly's dad does show up, shocking everyone, and she works out an awful truth. Her mum and her grandma lied to her. For 16 years, well, her mum and her grandma lied to her. For 16 years, Tilly is drowning in her family's lies. Worse, these feelings for her neighbour Zach, these stupid, flustering, more than friend feelings she's been trying to ignore, mean she's also lying to herself.
That sounds like a great book.
Mm.
Wow. So Jodie Benaviste. Benavista? We're just going to go through every
Yeah,
pronunciation.
apologies, Jodie.
Yep.
We'll get you on and you'll tell us exactly how it is, but people
Yes.
will know. We'll put the book up.
Is an author and psychologist who writes heart-expanding young adult contemporary fiction that helps you to new levels of self-understanding and emotional healing. She writes about love and friendships, family relationships, well-being, and mental health healing, introducing you to your amazing inner world and its hidden depths. She's been a psychologist in private practice, trusted parenting expert, organizational consultant, academic researcher, and chair of the board of an independent school. But at heart, she's always been a writer. She now writes entertaining, unputdownable, and heartwarming fiction that has healing at its heart. Oh, that's
Fantastic.
so good.
That's good, isn't
Yeah.
it? You can see that she's wrapped all of her experience up and now she's writing stories that reflect her messages.
Which
Brilliant.
is
All right.
great.
All
All
of those
right.
books are over on AustralianBookLovers.com. If you have a book that you would like to share for free with the world and get spotlighted on the podcast, AustralianBookLovers.com/for authors,
Mhm.
and you can list your book there and I will get it up as soon as I can. We try and share those on the podcast. We sometimes put them on social media. We rotate what's on the front cover features of the week, which are currently featuring some books by author Laurie Bell and author
Oh,
Veronica Strasser.
Breakfast Dragon.
Sometimes
Fantastic.
I try and put the books that we've had on the podcast sometimes if they happen to line up. So there you go. So
Oh,
there are a few ones there.
perfect. Yep. Yep. Get to see our
Beautiful.
covers and our books and listen to
Indeed.
us talking about ourselves a few episodes ago. So,
Yes, yes. As it was. And
yes.
of course the features of the week will have changed by the time we get this episode out, but that is okay.
Yes,
I think it's
absolutely.
time to talk to our very special guest.
Yes, to Dirk Strasser. And so, yes, I can just mention that we've got our fabulous interview with Dirk Strasser now coming up. And it was a brilliant chat talking all things historical fantasy, which is a fantastic genre concept and not something that I'd really thought about all that much. And it's amazing the amount of research that goes into a book like that. So, but before I tell you too much about it, I will let you all listen to the amazing Dirk Strasser. Book lovers, I am absolutely delighted today to have with me Dirk Strasser, author of Conquist, but also, and I had that right in front of me and it's disappeared from my notes, author of the Ascension series, which is Zenith, Equinox, and Eclipse. And so, hello and welcome to the Australian Book Lovers podcast, Dirk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. I'm very glad to be able to chat to you. Now, I am coming to listeners from my usual place of Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in Victoria. Do you happen to know where you are today,
Yeah,
Dirk?
I must be nearby. I'm Wurundjeri as well. So yeah,
Yep, absolutely. I know you're a Melbourne peep just like myself, and it is a little bit warm today, isn't it?
it is. Yes, but we'll
Um,
manage.
yeah, absolutely. So, Dirk, let's just kick off with I will get to your bio in just a second. And there are some really interesting bits in your bio I do want to talk about. But first, tell me, what has your journey, your writing journey been like for you? When did you start writing?
Hey, well, I think I started writing fiction when I first could write, which is going back to I don't know, 5 or 6 years old or something. I can remember um, writing lots and lots of stories when I was a kid. That's what I loved doing. Um, and one of the first things that I remember where I thought, I can maybe I can make a living out of this. I must have been about 9 years old or something, or 10 or whatever. And I wrote a Superman story, I mean, I
Oh,
suppose it's
really?
sort of, they call it fan fiction now. I didn't know,
Hmm.
didn't call it anything at that time. And I hand wrote several copies and illustrated them. And I went around the neighborhood and knocking on doors saying, do you want to buy my Superman book for 2 cents?
Oh, lovely.
And I got some money.
Hey.
And there was a whole bunch of friends that came with me to help me, and we just, I don't know, bought a bag of lollies or something at the end of it, and it was so that was my first experience of a professional sale.
Yeah, and a bit of profit sharing while you're at it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So look, it goes back to childhood. I started. I started writing. Probably one of the things that really inspired me was The Hobbit. I remember we read that or had it read to us, I think, in grade 5, and a friend of mine and I at the time were going to write our own fantasy book, our own fantasy novel. But we didn't have hobbits; we had zabbits in ours.
Oh.
And we sort of planned out the journey and all that sort of thing. I've lost contact with that friend. He moved to England at one point, and but I've still got it somewhere. That particular, I started writing it. I sort of got a few chapters into it, and then thought, there's a lot more to this. And
Yep.
But anyway, so it goes back that far. I guess when study got serious, a bit more serious, and I was at university, I think this happens to a lot of people. You don't want to spend your spare time writing if you're doing writing as part of the your daily studying sort of thing, and so on. So it sort of took a bit of a backstage for a while, and then probably once I got to my late 20s, maybe early 30s, I thought, look, I better start doing this more seriously. If I thought I was going to be a writer. Even if it was a part-time writer while I used to be a school teacher. But so then I sort of seriously went about trying to get published. And my first published story was science fiction, but it didn't appear in a science fiction magazine because it was sort of mainstream enough just to be considered, acceptable for that. It was a story called Nullarbor Lights, which was it was a simple story in a way. It was just about a traveller on the road through the Nullarbor Plain who just happened to see these lights. Because I remember I have been to the Nullarbor, and you see these lights coming from the distance forever. Like they just look like when's that car coming? And it was sort of this mysterious thing around these lights and I sort of turned it into a science fiction-y thing. So anyway, that was my first short story that was published. And I sort of then looked at I was always interested in science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and I just gravitated more. I first got a few stories accepted in just something like I think some of the literary magazines that were around at the time, and then I just felt naturally inclined to write fantasy and science fiction, which is what I read mainly, and got a few short stories published. I suppose the first one outside of Australia was in the Robert Silverberg anthology, Universe 2. He had a series of anthologies, and it was a thing in so it's sort of diary form, I guess. It was called Waiting for the Rain. I thought I was really pleased with that story, and I was glad that was picked up. And I can still remember getting a note, and it was letters in those days. It wasn't email, the acceptance, and it was from Robert Silverberg, who used to be he's one of my favourite writers, saying welcome to the club. So that was really nice, wasn't it? And
that's
then
amazing.
I went into. I thought, well, I've got to write a novel, and I went and I did a creative writing course at the local TAFE, but it wasn't a short course. It was actually a certificate course. So it went for I did it part-time for several years, and in the novel writing subject, which I did 1 year, I wrote most of Zenith, which was the first book of Ascension, the first fantasy book, the first certainly the first novel that I finished or even got anywhere near finishing. And fortunately, that particular book was timed with Pan Macmillan actually having launched a fantasy science fiction list, which is quite. That was quite a thing in Australia at that time, and it's still even now. They're not. There's few and far between.
It's not a big market, is it?
I sent it off, and they accepted it. I think I did. I probably queried others before that. I can't remember, but it was yeah. So I was really pleased with that. And I wrote the sequel to that a couple of years later. Unfortunately, by the time I got around to writing the third book, which was actually I ended up getting a German agent, and he managed to get most of my short stories and my novels, the three books of Ascension, published in German.
Oh, wow.
Which was really, I mean, that was really exciting. You've just got to have the right agent for that. That was complete luck that I managed to get him. It was just one of those things where I saw in a fanzine that he was an agent looking for Australian writers because he had a connection to Australia. He knew some Australians, whatever, to publish in German. And I just, because I mean, my background's German, I threw a few German words into my query to him, and it just sort of helped, I think, a lot. And he took me on, and that was really good. Unfortunately, it's sort of then people sort of think, you're once you've got all these publications you made, and you're going to just the trajectory is going to continue up. It didn't. There's a couple of things that happened. First of all, Pan Macmillan decided to axe their science fiction and fantasy list. So my third book never came out. So it was an unfinished trilogy, and it really needed that third trilogy. So it was that sort of killed the series for a while. However, it was published in German. I mean, I wrote it, and it was published in German, and it did reasonably well in Germany. Unfortunately, the other thing that happened, my German agent retired, so it sort of ran out of momentum. So anyway, that was a bit of a flat period that way. But I wrote a children's. I was also writing children's stories during that time as well, and I had a lot of them published in the school magazines and things like that. And I had one children's book published, Graffiti, which was a really I really enjoyed. I would do more of that, but haven't. Well, I haven't, but I would like to do more of writing for children because I really enjoyed that, and that was quite successful. But I then. I suppose other things again took over in terms of my what you have as your priorities in your life, I guess. And I ended up in my job, or as part of my job, I ended up writing, but it wasn't fiction. I wrote school textbooks. So I've been doing that for quite a while.
That's a different brain right there.
Sort of took up a lot of time. I was still doing bits and pieces in between, but really I've been working on Conquist, which we're going to talk about, and there's another book that another series actually that I've been working on that haven't been published yet. I'm still still doing rewrites on them. I was working on them all the time, but I wasn't entirely happy with them, and I'm still and Conquist took quite a while as well as this other book that hasn't been published yet. So it got to a point where I then said, look, I'm going to have to do something with this novel Conquist and some of the other things that have been on the boil, and I'm going to really be serious. I'm going to do a final rewrite, and it's going to be fantastic, and I'm going to just send it out. And so Conquist spent a bit of time finding a home, mainly because I had problems with agents along the way and whatever. In the end, I found a home for it without an agent. So and I'm really pleased with Roundfire Books. So here we are. That's where that's where my writing journey is right at the moment. The publication of Conquist on the 1st of September. So,
what a fantastic journey that you've had so far. So very fascinating with lots of interesting twists and turns there. Well, let me read your official bio for our listeners that are out there. So, and of course, our new watchers now that we're up on YouTube. Dirk Strasser has won multiple Australian Publisher Association awards and a DITMA for Best Professional Achievement. His short stories have been translated into a number of languages, and his acclaimed fantasy trilogy, The Books of Ascension, Zenith, Equinox, and Eclipse, has been published in English, Pan Macmillan Momentum, and German with Hein. His short story, The Doppelganger Effect, appeared in the World Fantasy Award-winning anthology Dreaming Down Under through HarperCollins, edited by Jack Dan. His articles have appeared in most of Australia's major newspapers. He founded the Aurealis Awards and has co-edited and co-published Australia's premier science fiction and fantasy magazine, Aurealis, for over 30 years. He lives in Melbourne, Australia, with his wife and fluffy white dog. He has 2 adult children. He has been a high school teacher. Now, that would be a lot of stories right there, I can imagine. And a writer of best-selling textbooks, and educational software developer, a publishing manager, and a soccer club president. His historical fantasy novel Conquist was a finalist in the Aurealis Awards Best Fantasy Novel category. Dirk's screenplay version of Conquist won the Wild Sound Fantasy Sci-Fi Festival Best Scene Reading Award and was featured finalist in the Cinequest Film and Creativity Festival and the Creative World Awards. My goodness, that is a fantastic bio that you have
And I'm
there,
very tired.
Dirk. Yes, I can imagine. And there is so much that I want to talk about there. But first, let me tell everyone a little bit about Conquest with the blurb. And we will pop a picture of the cover up on screen, which I'm dying to ask you about as well. So the blurb. So this time they invaded a new world that refused to be conquered. Captain, and I'm sure I will absolutely ruin half of these names, and I do apologize, so feel free to correct me. Captain Cristobal de Varga's drive for glory and gold in 1538 Peru leads him and his conquistadors into a new world. He knows it's his last campaign. What he doesn't know is that his Incan allies, led by Princess Sape, have their own furtive plans to make sure he never finds the golden city of Vilcabamba. Is that close?
Yep, that's fine. Fine so far.
He also doesn't know that the freed African slave Lieutenant Hector Valente has found a portal to a world that will challenge his deepest beliefs. I love a good portal fiction. And what he can't possibly know is that this world will trap him in a war between 2 eternal enemies, leading him to question everything he has devoted his life to: his command, his Incan princess, his honor, his God. In the end, he faces the ultimate dilemma. How is it possible to battle your own obsessions, to conquer yourself? Wow, what a fantastic blurb. So tell me, where did the idea for Conquest come from?
It started way back. It was, again, probably my around about 9-year-old self. I don't know. Some of these things go back away. They just sort of stay in your mind and come out eventually. But my favorite book at the time was a Tintin book, if you're familiar with those. It was Tintin and the Prisoners of the Sun, the Hergé sort of, I suppose they call them graphic novels now. I don't think they were called graphic novels at the time. I was 9 years old, and I was actually in hospital for an extended period, and someone gave it to me, and I just read that book over and over again and loved it. It's about the Incas who, like a group of Incas who've hidden from modern society and still did their sun worship and whatever, and Tintin gets involved with those, and they sort of somehow manage to escape being the invasion of the Spanish and their influence and all that. So I just love that story, and I read it again and again, and I think it was one of the first times I thought, there's something magical happening, with the way the story works. So I just sort of kept that in the back of my mind for years, and sort of liked the history of the Incas, and I liked just the stories of how the conquistadors conquered the Inca Empire. I used to watch on television, there was sort of documentaries on that and whatever, and it was just fascinating. It just fascinated me. So it was an idea it was something that appealed to me from the start, but the actual idea of it came later of the story, because the story is about mixing this Inca culture and the Spanish invaders with a fantasy world. That was the big sort of idea that I had, combining them, because it wasn't just a historical novel. I wanted to have this fantasy. I thought, what would happen if these invaders, who are pretty brutal and they did a lot of damage, what happens if they end up fighting some magical creatures? So they've got their guns and they've got their horses and whatever, and their cannons, and I don't know, that idea just appealed to me, and I knew it hadn't been done before. So that was the start, and it was an idea, and but it required research. But I sort of I wanted to sort of really get into that side of it, the fact that you've got these Spanish conquerors, what was their motives and whatever. And there was a call out for an anthology it was actually Dreaming Again, which was Jack Dan. It was I think a HarperCollins anthology of Australian science fiction and fantasy, and I pitched him this idea about the Spanish conquistadors against sort of entering a fantasy world, and he said, "Look, yeah, send it to me." So I mean, I'd sort of a short story. I'd sort of half written it, and I finished off, and I sent it to him, and he accepted it. So that was the start of Conquist being published, and that was that was a high profile.
That's a short story
anthology. It was and a number of people, there were a few reviews and said it was really good. They enjoyed it and all that sort of thing. So that was great. But then I thought, look, it really is a novel. I wrote it in diary form, this short story, and I thought, well, it's big enough to be a novel. It should be a novel, but you can't write a novel well, I don't think you can anyway. In this style of book in diary form, it just can't all be in diary form. So I was stuck on that for a while. I thought, well, how am I going to do this? I've got to change the whole thing. So I tried writing a novella, and it didn't quite work. It was all right, but I just thought, no, it's just too much to fit into it. It didn't work. So in the end, I started writing a novel, and I decided to have just excerpts of the diary in it. And that was sort of the thing that made it possible. That's how I suddenly worked out, well, this is what it's going to be. We can hear what Cristobal says and thinks and whatever, but you don't have to the whole novel like that. So, and at the same time, I thought, it's really a movie, because and that was a big change, because although I've done a number of film writing courses in the past, and I thought about writing film, I hadn't written much at all in the film area. I dabbled a little bit, almost. I did a treatment of a children's book that I'd written, and that went to sort of a development stage. It sort of got to a point where it's close to someone considering it to be developed into a movie, but nothing major. So I thought, I'm going to write this as a movie script. So in the end, I wrote it in tandem. I wrote the novel, had people look at it and give me feedback. Then and while they were doing that, I wrote the movie script, and then I got that assessed, and then it sort of went backwards and forwards, and the two fed into each other, because it was quite different. I mean, it is different. It's totally different writing a film script than it is a novel, and it was just interesting getting the feedback from the people who looked at the film script and then the people who looked at the novel, were looking at the novel and being my readers, and then and comparing them. And it was very useful, actually. It was a lot of cross-fertilization in that process. So it was sort of both. I sort of finished both the novel and the film script more or less at the same time.
Wow. Do you think that the thinking of it with the heavy dialogue, with the screenplay, with the visualization of a lot of the scenes, do you think that fed into your scene setting with your novel?
100%. And these, I mean, in the film industry, what they care about is what's the motivation of the character. If you haven't got that clear in your head, like absolutely crystal clear, you haven't got anything. And what's the character arc? What do they learn at the end of it? It's like you can get away. There's a lot of novels that sort of don't have that, and that's fine. But a film script, certainly a commercial film script, has to have that sort of thing. And so there was a number of things along those lines that made a difference, I think. So yeah, it was. I think also you think that movie scripts are mainly about dialogue, and they're not really. You've really got to look at the action scenes very closely, and you've got to make every word count, because in a film script, the way they're formatted, one page is a minute of time on the screen, so that you've really only got, for a movie, you've got 120 pages because you've only got about 120 minutes.
Yeah.
Or else your film's too long to start off with, really. I know
Yeah.
there's films
So
get...
straight away you're looking at half your book count.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you, but it's also because the way the dialogue is sort of the way it formats, you don't get anywhere near as much on the page as what you do in a novel. So
So true. Yeah.
it makes it it forces you to make the plot points. To make sure that you've only got the essentials in the plot points. You've really got to think, oh, this was a really good scene, but no, I've got to get rid of something. That's the thing I've got to get rid of, even though I'll keep it in the novel. So it's sort of the just being very conciseness and tightness of plot. It really helps.
Yeah, that would really help you flesh out that good old synopsis
Yes.
after the fact.
Yes. Yes. It did. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the research for Conquest, because you describe it as a historical fantasy.
Yep.
So what do you see really are the elements of a historical fantasy? What is your fantasy elements? Where's your target there?
Yeah.
What do
I
you
think,
see?
well, from the reading I've been doing of historical fantasy, it's a broad range. Like, people do it differently. So it's not just the way I've done it, but I feel that the historical part has to feel absolutely realistic. Like a story, and I think a historical novel needs to have that. And that way, that means there's got to be an enormous amount of research. I like research, and it was a topic that I really enjoyed. So I don't mind spending the time on that. In fact, I enjoyed that. But just take, for example, I mean, we've got these. As I said, I've got the diary entries. Now, I wanted them to feel like they were really authentic. Okay, but to do that, I had to read real conquistadors' diaries.
Oh, wow.
And that. Fortunately, I found them really fascinating. I mean, which is the one that I read, which was probably the one that had the most influence on, was a thing called, I think it was Bernal Diaz, the Conquest of New Spain, or something like that, or the true story of the Conquest of New Spain. He was with Cortez when he conquered the Aztec Empire. So it wasn't the Incas, it was the Aztecs, but same thing. I mean, roughly the same time period, and exactly the same. And he apparently, he wrote it 30 years after he was part of the invading force. And he said, look, what Cortez has reported about this, he just big notes himself. He didn't do it by himself. And he didn't say he had, he said he had some part, but he said he had all these allies. Like, there were these, people that were under the Aztec Empire who wanted some allies to rebel against them. So he had, tens of thousands of people supporting him in whatever. So that was just one aspect. But I read it mainly, well, to get some real sort of reality sort of detail, but also I wanted to get the voice right as well, because really, if you write a memoir and if you write a memoir and you're a conquistador, you do want to say how great you are, so you do think you're important, and you want to show the posterity how important you are. So I tried to get that feel into the diary excerpts, and I think it worked because I put in an author note at the start, which says this story is based on a diary that was discovered in a museum in Peru. And I mean, it's just a device, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've read two reviews now that assumed that diary exists, and that I basically wrote my story. I took the ideas from the diary and turned it into a novel or something like
How
that. So
fantastic.
it must have done a fairly good job on that.
Well, I have to say the diary entries that I've read, that they really pop. The voice that you've got in those diary entries, it's glorious. I was really enjoying getting into those diary entries. So that's fascinating to me. It really shows that depth of research that it works.
Yeah, and you can sort of really say some quite profound things and not sound corny
Yep.
in that guise,
Mhm.
so some of the things that are in those diary entries,
Yeah.
you know, sound like profound and high literary and all that sort of thing, and you just can't get away with that unless you've got the person specifically. You can that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And the novel is structured with a multi point of view.
Yep.
And there's short, sharp chapters that really get you straight into that character's head. I was really enjoying Sanjay's. Yes.
Sarpe.
Yeah, Sanpei, sorry.
Yep.
Yes, I found myself hooking into her viewpoint really well and was really enjoying that. So why did you have a multi point of view in mind for this novel?
Um, I it was because of the epic nature of the story and of the plot, I guess. It just I couldn't tell the story with Cristobal in every scene. It just didn't work. So I it was a deliberate choice, and and I had to make sure too that I wanted it to be Cristobal's story. Like he's definitely the main character, but all the other characters. You do hear there's a number of them. You get their thoughts, and they have their own sort of character arc. But they all feed into they sort of reflections of what he's going up against or reacting against what he's up against, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it was just the epic nature of the story. As it turned out, it had to be multi-viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find that had an effect with to come down to how did you put the story together? So of course we know that there are plotters and we know that there are pantsers, and with a historical novel with multi-personalities, multi-point of views, the putting together of the novel can be quite difficult. I've written a couple with multi-point of views, and I do find that some characters are a bit further ahead or with their understanding of what's happening at the time of the story, and you end up moving things around and they get quite disjointed and jumbled. How are you as a plotter or a pantser? How do you put your story
Well,
together?
look, I'm definitely not a really strict plotter. I I mean I often read about writers who've spent months plotting something, and then it just becomes easy because they're just writing it out. And I would really get bored with the writing part of that. And I really like writing something and then thinking, oh, that's not going to happen. This is going to happen, or they wouldn't do that. They do this and go in a completely different direction all of a sudden because that's the way the sort of the story was working.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not a strict planner. I'm not a strict pantser either. So I use it. My friend Michael Pry, who's also a writer, and he's another editor on Aurealis. He coined. Well, I'm pretty sure he coined the term backpacker. So a backpacker knows where pretty much what the final destination of their trip's going to be, and they know pretty much. Oh, I want the highlights are going to be this, that, and the other. But there's a lot of freedom to go wherever they want to in between, and really also to not go to some of the highlights that they thought they were going to go to, and go to some other highlights. So I'm more that, and also I'm also, although I've got to have an ending. I definitely have to have an ending. But sometimes I've written stuff where I've then got by the time I got there, I changed it. It's sort of there's some planning that happens at the start, but it's you've still got. I feel you've got to be flexible along the way.
Yeah, that's a great term.
So
I have a feeling I'm going to pick up that term quite well. That's a great term for how sometimes the characters will take your story somewhere you weren't expecting, and you kind of have to follow them along, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's where you get problems if
Mm.
you don't.
Yeah.
You're trying to force them into something, then becomes awkward, not believable,
Yep.
not convincing. And so yes, I think it's important.
Yeah. So tell me about your amazing book cover, which we will pop up. I keep looking over to the
Yeah.
corner because I've got it sitting here with me. But how did you come together with getting your book cover put together?
Okay. I ended up. I got to a point where I was going to self-publish Conquest.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, the only way it's going to have a chance is if it's got a really, really good cover,
Yeah.
not something that's just sort of I throw together. So I thought there's one thing I need to do is find a really good cover artist. Now, there's a site in the UK called Readsy. I don't know if you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with it.
Yep. Yep. I
Now,
am.
I looked at that and I basically searched for fantasy cover artists on
Ah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And this illustrator, this artist, Alejandro Colucci,
Mm-hmm.
came up, and I looked at his stuff and I went, "Oh wow, he is unbelievable." Now he's done. At the time, he'd done the Witcher series.
Fantastic.
But he's done stuff for Robin Hobb and for Anne Rice and
Oh,
for
wow.
people. And he's done for all sorts of classics as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh well, I mean, and it was fairly expensive, but I thought,
Mm-hmm.
because I was self-publishing, he gave me a mate's rate sort of thing.
Oh, that was
Um,
nice.
well, I think he does that for anyone who's
Yeah. Oh,
self-publishing,
good on
but he
him.
just doesn't want the big publishers to
Yeah.
to sort of take advantage of him, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. But anyway, I mean, the way I've done book covers in the past is I've sent some scenes to the or the publisher says send us some scenes to the artist, and they'll pick one and that strikes a chord, and they'll do something. So I just sort of thought, well, I picked about 5 quite visual sort of scenes and sent it to him. I thought, well, he'll find something from those. And he ended up putting all 5 scenes on the cover,
It's
which I
extraordinary.
could not believe. I didn't
Yeah.
intend that he'd do that, but he did.
A brilliant artist.
And he really put them together really
Mm,
well.
they really sell it.
So and it sort of doesn't give away anything because
Mm-hmm.
yes, if once you read the book and you look back in the cover and say, oh, this part's in it and this part's in it, but it doesn't really give away anything in advance, which is really clever. So he basically, what you see pretty much, there was a few things that I needed to change, but pretty much came back with what you see as the cover now. There was
Fantastic.
one thing, he had the sort of the angel-like figure in the middle. He had that as a male. I said, no, they're female.
Mm-hmm.
He said, oh yeah, I know the person was female in your scene, but I just assumed there was a male one as well. I said, no,
They're all.
they've got to be that one there has to be female, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he changed that, and then I sort of got a bit arty with him. I said, look, I've always imagined the title Conquest to be in gold. He had it in black or something.
Okay.
I said, I always, because the conquistadors are searching for gold. The whole
Mm.
story revolves around their
You
greed,
just think of gold.
and
Yeah.
that's so central. It's got to be in gold, and I want it to be melting gold. And he said, oh yeah, look, I'll
That's a
have a look.
challenge.
I'll see what I can do. And he came back and said, look, I put a little bit of a melt in it. If you put too much, the title becomes unreadable or difficult to read. And I agreed with that.
Mm.
I was really happy with the way he did it. I mean, maybe you have to look fairly close to see it's melting, but still,
It's very pretty.
that sort of, I don't know. He went out of his way to do a really good cover for me.
Yeah.
And then when I ended up going to Roundfire Books, they asked me, "Do you have the rights to the cover?" I said, "Well, I've got to go back to the artist Alejandro Colucci. I've got to ask him because he sold it. I mean, paid him only on the basis of self-publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and in
Oh,
the end, he
yes.
said, "No, yes, look, you can still use it for your publisher." So that
Oh,
was really
that's
good.
great.
Yeah,
Amazing. Oh, it really does sell something about a book with their cover. It really does
yeah.
grab your attention straight away, I think.
Yeah, look, I've said the reaction I've had is has been, wow, what a cover!
Yeah.
Pretty much, most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I just love that cover, and it tells. I've always loved covers that tell a story. Like that's you've got a story right there sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I hope he wins some awards for the cover because
Absolutely.
I really think it's that good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of those ones that does grab your attention. So that to me, that's always a sign of a great cover. It immediately draws the eye and grabs your attention.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
So with because your world is so vast with your stories, your poetry, your short stories, the screenplay now that you've now got the skills up for putting that together, what have you learned between your first series and Conquist?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, the first series, the Books of Ascension, were well, certainly the first book, Zenith, was a lot simpler. It was a much simpler book in a lot of ways, and it was a one point of view book. Like the main character um, was true, and he just we followed him the whole time, and he was really the only person that we got the thoughts of, and whatever.
Yep.
And he actually has a twin, and they split up at the start. And one of the comments I had about Zenith was, "What happened to the other twin?" I said,
Ah.
"Well, I was just sticking to him for that book. He appears in the second and third book of the trilogy, but I wanted to just stick to him. I wanted to be just his story, so it made it easier to manage. Like it is a lot harder doing the multi-viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conquest is a much more complicated. Well, complicated. There's more happening in it. It was quite like one of the comments about Zenith is that certainly for the first, bit of it, it takes a more of a leisurely pace. It certainly speeds up as you go along, but I started off with not at not at the breakneck speed or anything like that. So I think, and also the main characters are 19 in those books, so they're, if not young adult, sort of young adult-ish, but they were adult. I always thought of them as adult books, and they were marketed as adult books. Maybe for a long time for a while there was another category called new adult or something like that. But anyway,
Yep.
they were 19, and it was about. I suppose I was closer to 19 then than I am now. But it had the themes were not as I don't know. There was the themes in Conquest are quite sort of major. I mean, the kind of the things that affect the main characters. There are some pretty momentous occurrences in that. Whereas in Zenith, it was not quite on the same level as that. It was, I suppose. Well, I suppose it was life or death at one point in those as well. But there was. I took the time to develop the relationships in that book a lot more as well. But I mean, apparently, I broke a number of laws in writing Zenith. I remember reading many years afterwards. You should never, how people have these rules in writing.
So many.
You should never. First of all, one of them was don't have a prologue. The prologues are.
I've definitely heard that one.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I had a prologue in every single one of those books of Ascension, and they were crucial. They were crucial to the plot. I would say don't have a prologue if it doesn't add anything to the story. I mean, but to me, that's an obvious thing. But anyways, I had a prologue. That's the first thing. There's another law that says, I read somewhere, don't have a piece of dialogue at the start of your book where it's not attributed immediately.
Oh,
Right?
really?
And I did have that. And I thought, the reason I had that was because the person was the main character was blindfolded at the time. So I wanted a little bit of a sense of, there's a bit of confusion or whatever. I mean, we find out who it is pretty soon afterwards, but I thought anyway, I thought I had to read it. But, and then you start to doubt yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about all those rules. And do publishers and do agents look at it and say, oh, this has got a prologue. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good. Do I need to read this? I don't know. Yes. So it's there was a lot of, I would say there was more pantsing going on in Zenith, and to some degree the other two books as well than I think I'm doing now. There was a lot of, I'm just writing this, let's see where this goes.
Yep.
And I think what happens then, and it happened in Zenith a little bit, it takes a few chapters to actually get into, oh, hang on, this is the direction we're going. And once I've got that direction, yes, it sort of took off, but maybe there's a few chapters early on where you're sort of mucking around a bit here. But anyway, that's, that is you sort of learn these things. I still thought it was a successful novel. Well, it is a successful novel, but, if I was writing it today, I'd probably write it differently.
Oh, what would you change?
A little bit. Oh, I would tighten up a bit of a few early chapters.
Okay.
But I think by the time I got to Equinox and Eclipse, I think there was a lot better. And I like the fact that I got all sorts of feedback on Zenith, and I sort of took that on board when I wrote the second and third book. So it helped a lot. And where they said, well, in Zenith we don't know this and we don't know that. And said, oh well, you'll find out in the next one. As if I'd always intended to find.
Yeah. I was always going to be there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Aurealis and how that came all about. I know we're coming up to a very big anniversary with the Aurealis Awards.
Yes. Well, Aurealis started, it was started as a magazine. Well, it's a magazine primarily, and we started in 1990, believe it or not.
Wow.
That was the first 2 issues. I met, who's now a good friend of mine, Stephen Higgins, in a creative writing class, and we were the only 2 in this creative writing class that were into science fiction and fantasy. So we sort of bonded a bit over that. And a couple of years afterwards, we just said to each other, we should do a, I don't know why you say this, we should do a fantasy science fiction magazine. Because there weren't many around, or the ones that were didn't last that long, or we just thought, well, there should be something major. And
particularly in Australia.
Yeah, in Australia, we're talking about an Australian science fiction fantasy magazine, purely Australian stories in it. So it just sounded like a good idea at the time, and we did it. It was lucky because my brother's a printer, so he could help us with those early issues in particular, which are tricky in terms of getting them out. And we got a big distributor in newsagents to start off with. So we started off with a bang. Like, we were in all the news agencies across Australia in the first sort of 4 or 5 issues. And then we found out about returns, which you sort of learn about these things. We just thought, all these, there's thousands going out. It was quite a small magazine. Like, it was, I don't know, A5 size, I think it was, sort of thing. So sort of book size, and it was, it didn't have that many pages, but it did quite well. But then, the agency, the distributor said, look, we can't keep distributing this with these numbers because, for us, they were good numbers. Even though there was, number of returns, they were still pretty good numbers. That for them, they're doing, Women's Weekly and New Idea and whatever. So it didn't work. So we sort of had to go to a subscription model more, and we went to tried to get bookstore distribution, and that worked for a while. But we then got to a point where postage costs just killed us. It just we were had a fair number of subscribers, but
Cost more to
the
send it.
postage was going up. We had to keep increasing the cost of it, and every time we increased the cost to match the postage, fewer people dropped off. Subscribers dropped off.
Yeah.
So then we went a number of years ago now, fully digital, and it's been a huge success since then. So we've been really pleased with that. The last 4 or 5 years, we've increased our subscribers each year, which is really saying something, because most of these sort of magazines, no matter what format they're in, around the world are sort of declining slowly.
Yeah.
If they're lucky, it's a slow decline. If they're not lucky, it's a quick decline. So we're really pleased with that, and we maintained its Australian feel and whatever. The only change we made a couple of years ago was we have 10 issues a year, and there's there's now 2 Australian stories and 1 overseas story in each issue. Plus we have 3 articles as well, and there's book reviews, and each story is illustrated. It's
it's a great email. I get it every month. It's
fantastic.
Oh, I do.
Oh, it's good. I'm probably
I'm one of those.
Okay, thank you.
It really, it's a great issue that comes out, and it really does have such a great Australian feel to it. And I mean, I write science fiction and fantasy myself, so I know what the market is like in Australia, and it can be tricky. So just the more the merrier. The more ways of getting stories out is really important, I think. So it's a wonderful thing you're doing.
Yeah, look, we still feel, even after all these years, there are still a lot of people in Australia that write science fiction and fantasy and horror. We do a fair bit of horror as well, or read it, are really avid readers, super readers or whatever, and who don't subscribe to us. And I can't understand why they don't.
No,
I just can't understand
they need to get onto it.
I mentioned Michael Pry before. He often, when he gives talks, he always says, hands up, and this is based on science fiction.
Yeah.
He gives a lot of talks on that sort of thing. And he says, hands up if you subscribe to Aurealis. And usually there's only a smattering of hands that go up. I think, well, should be all of you. All of you should be subscribing to Aurealis. But anyway, there's my point.
I'm an avid reader. The more I can inhale, the better. So what about the awards? How did that come about?
Now the awards started a few years later. We basically felt, okay, we did the magazine because we wanted to support Australian science fiction, fantasy and horror writing, really. And we thought, okay, we've got that covered with the magazine. We've got we were open to beginning writers, and we do have we end up getting a lot of first-time writers there, but and also and experienced writers, but it's basically short story, and we're not really supporting the next level of writer beyond that. So we thought we should institute an awards. I mean, we're well placed to do it. We're a magazine. We've got a name that's well known. Let's do it. Let's do an awards. Another one of those. It felt like a good idea at the time. For about, I don't know, it's going to be its 30th anniversary next year. So
that's extraordinary. 30 years that this is.
So back in 95 was the first Aurealis Award. And for about the first 5 or 6 years, pretty much I did everything on the awards. So I came up with the rules for judging, and I got the judges, and I've got the judge panels together and wrangled them to make sure they got a decision, and then I organised the awards and whatever. That was a lot of work, and I think I enjoyed it. It was really good, and there were some real highlights of what we did, and we really promoted some writers who ended up being really, really well known after winning the Aurealis Awards. But after about 5 or 6 years, I just had to step back, and other people have taken it on since. Aurealis still sort of owns the Aurealis Awards, but it's run effectively completely hands off, like it's completely apart from Aurealis Magazine. So we felt you certainly can't advantage Aurealis stories or something, or have sort of a bias there or something. It's got to be completely open. So Yeah, so it's 30, it'll be 30 years next year. There's a big celebration planning. The Aurealis Awards will be in Canberra, something like the 28th of May or whatever next year. So um, people should go to the awards or just stay tuned just in case there's a date change or I've got the date wrong there. But there's I think there's an anthology of Aurealis Award winners coming out. So
Wow, that'll be
so yeah,
fantastic.
stay tuned for that as well. All of this other people are doing. I'm not taking any credit for this. This is the current people organising the Aurealis Awards. So yeah, it's my
Wonderful.
input sort of since those first 5 or 6 years have been more to make sure they keep going. Like usually there's a group of people that say put up their hand and say we'll run them for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever. And then when they're finished, I've got to find another group that's to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that it stays and add as a link between them. So I'm still involved at that level, but in terms of the actual running and day-to-day stuff, yes, I'm not involved. I have to have some time to myself.
You need some time to get some writing in.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So tell me what's coming up for you? What's next for Dirk Strasser?
Very good question. There are two. There's one novel which is is first in a series that I've been working on probably longer than Conquist. It's I suppose it's historical fantasy as well, but it's very different to Conquist. And I yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but I'm going to. I think it needs one final rewrite, and then I reckon it will be good because there's a number of things that I've learnt, as I said, writing Conquest that I want to sort of impose on the manuscript as it is at the moment. And so there's that, and then there's another kids novel that I've been working on, and it is one of those novels that was very close to being published on a number of occasions, but including by Penguin at one point, but just wasn't. So I think I know now again, I'm doing a rewrite on that. So you may see that in the not too distant future as well. And it'll be, and that's one of the ones that I really want to get published because I read that to my kids when they were the age of the kids in the novel. And they loved it. They said, where is it? So anyway, I want to get that one published.
They are a great audience, and you'll get your most honest feedback from the younger readers.
Yes. Yeah, look, they're good. So anyway, they're the two things so it's effectively two rewrites.
And the screenplay of
the
Conquist?
screenplay, I'm the research I've done on this is that the best way to get a screenplay looked at is to write a successful novel. So I'm really hoping that Conquest sells its pants off, and then the fact that I've got a screenplay already sitting there, it'll pique people's interest. That's my.
Well, I love a good portal fiction, so I could definitely recommend it from that fantasy side of the historical fantasy. I'm absolutely loving it. So tell me, Dirk, where can viewers or listeners out there find you online?
Okay, I think the best place is my website, which is www.dirkstrasser.com. So it's just my name.com. I sort of keep it up to date, and there's a sign up for a newsletter as well if people want to do that. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. So and I'm sort of thinking about Blue Sky.
Blue Sky's pretty good. I managed to get my co-host Veronica onto Blue Sky a couple of weeks ago, so I've been quite enjoying the writers community that's really developed on there. So I recommend that one as well.
Well, you might see me on that not too distant future.
Well, if so, I will definitely see you online there as well. Well, once again, I'd really like to thank you, Dirk Strasser, for joining the Australian Book Lovers podcast and for talking to us today. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And yes, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you've had a a good time chatting about the amazing Conquest. And I do recommend this one. Get your copies. Get onto that one if you are a big fantasy reader, portal fiction, or of course historical fiction, because the depth of the research that's gone into this book is brilliant. And as I say, the diary entries certainly pop with voice. I'm just loving it.
All right. Well, look, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
So thank you. So thank you to Dirk Strasser for a brilliant chat and so many things. And I must admit, I followed up with one of his blogs because he had a great quote, and he's calling it histasy. So,
Yeah.
you know, they get romantasy. Well, now it's histasy, which is
Histasy.
historical fantasy. There's a big sort of, you know, it's starting to get a little bit of a roll on. So I think Dirk's, you know, not surprisingly, at the forefront of that, because he has obviously been at the forefront of many other fantastic science fiction things. And what another great supporter of Australian writers.
Very much so. And I mean, the Aurealis Awards are something that I've always been aware of. I've put in books to the awards. So, and I know they've been a big supporter of Australian science fiction, which there's not a huge push in genre with Australia. In your horror and your sci-fi and your fantasy areas that there really should be more of, because there's a great audience here. We are ravenous.
And you know, as I just said, I read over 100 books a year. So come on, people.
Yeah.
I love that he was in, you know, Profit Sharing at 9 years of age. Robert Silverberg, read a lot of Robert Silverberg when I was younger, and ideas planted all the way through his life, really. You know, he's picked bits and pieces up and, you know, took some time. And the film script, cross-fertilization, love that. And, you know, gave you sort of that discipline. And backpacker. He's not the first
I
to be the
love that
backpacker.
term. How great is that as a term? Because I certainly would say I would have said a pantser, but when we started talking about it, I thought, actually,
yes.
Yeah, I do know my start. I do know my end. I know my points. It's like,
and you're happy
that's
for
more
it to
fitting.
flow in between. It's good. Very good. And 30 years for the Aurealis Awards next year, and it's going to be in the ACT. Perhaps we need to talk about that, Laurie, and go up and see.
We might have to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go up and see.
Plonk ourselves somewhere and actually do a live podcast.
Yes, do a live potty, which would be good. We could run into Emily up there, who's one of the 6 a.m. Oz writers. I've been threatening to get up to the con that they have up there a couple of times. Haven't quite got there. Maybe 2025 is the year, because, you know, the husband and I have done the grey nomad thing. Even though we're not nomading, we've bought the caravan. And so we're looking for short trips initially.
Well, then
To see
perfect.
how we go. I'm thinking, you know, a caravan trip to Canberra, although it's really cold up there. If it's in May, it's going to be freezing.
Yeah,
maybe
that's true.
Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, thank you to Dirk Strasser for a great interview. Thanks, Laurie, for sharing that with us. And now it's time for some quotes.
Yes. So I went with, I've actually got 2, but I thought I'd go in for that real inspirational author quote, because of course I've now put forward my book 5. It's gone. The end of the series is gone, and I need something to keep me going, because I need to get back into it. So Be Kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle, by Plato. But also, don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose, which is C.S. Lewis. And I thought, I think those are the things to keep in mind when you're buried in your own world, buried in work, buried in the dramas of everyday life, trying to get a book written while working full time. Sometimes it's good to just remember, it's like, you know what? They don't control work doesn't control my happiness. The train doesn't. It's like I can focus on that myself. Yeah, it's a good reminder, I think, at this time of year.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And it is this time of year, which can be
Yeah.
tricky and triggering for
Yeah.
some people. All right. This is a quote by Eudora Waity, Weity, and Eudora died in 2001. She was born in 1909 in Jackson, Mississippi, and she was an short story writer, novelist, and photographer who wrote about the American South. And yeah, I really love this quote. Daydreaming had started me on the way, but writing, once I was truly in its grip, took me and shook me awake. Yeah, I really like that. I thought Dirk was talking about, how the stories and things, and he's seen them, and across his life, all those little reminders, and really the daydreaming, is there. But writing, once I was truly in its grip, took me and shook me awake. And I thought creatively, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that fits very much with what we've been discussing all through today's podcast. It's
Yes.
very much that, you know what? You need to do it
Yeah.
if you need to have that that creative outlet when things are tough or dark or just tiring or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Bring
Take
the
that.
light in.
Bring the light in.
Yeah.
Indeed. That's the through the cracks, which is, as we know, is a Leonard Cohen, which says that's where all the good stuff comes in. All right.
Yep.
This is one from Peter Drucker, who is a business guy, but I've always quite liked this. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And while he was talking about business and that kind of thing, I still feel like that as a writer and as somebody who wants to follow those creative dreams,
Yes.
make it happen.
Yeah.
And you've made it happen. You've just shown people how 8 months has got you to the point where you could press submit on your
Hit
manuscript.
send and off it goes. And now if I think about it too much, I will stress myself out, but because you never know
It's
how it's
gone.
going to be
Of
received
course.
by anyone, whether it's your publisher or whether it's a reader or whether it's your parents who read a draft, which mine do. It's like, hope you like it.
Yeah. Of course, they're going to tell you they love it, but you hope that they really love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's finish with one by Dirk Strasser
Yes.
from his blog, which he was asked about sort of the messages in Conquist. And he says, no goal is worth achieving at the expense of personal relationships. So that's the kind of key message he feels in Conquist, which is, really good.
Very,
Nice
very
way.
fitting.
Nice way to
Yeah.
finish.
Yes.
And, that's kind of a start for people's new year. Get inspired, start getting your
Yes.
goals, have your holidays,
Yeah, it's
start
the
thinking
whole
about what you want to do this year.
the resolutions and what you might be thinking about starting or continuing or pushing or going back to. We recommend writing.
We do recommend
We
writing.
do. We recommend it.
Journaling, fiction, non-fiction, but writing
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
And if you physically are not able to write, dictate.
Yeah.
Right, just get your words on a page or on a file or on a document, whatever that
If
is.
you've always wanted to do it, maybe this will be the year. Maybe now is the time. Oh, I hear a siren in the background. And I happen to know that Santa is in my area
Ooh!
today, which is very exciting. So I might have to duck out and say hello.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we better say thanks, everybody, and happy 2025. And remember this year that you have to read
more Aussie books. Yes.
Read.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.